What if I told you that the car most feared by engineers was neither Ferrari, nor McLaren, nor Red Bull, but Fernando Alonso's? Why do the data scare rivals, even though the times do not reflect it? Let's unravel the mystery of arm26. Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. That day was not about setting times, not even competing. It was about validating fundamentals, making sure that the conceptual basis on which this radical car has been built works in real conditions. The approach was completely technical. Systems check, aerodynamic correlation, validation of the new internally manufactured gearbox, and thermal management of the new Honda hybrid. All this while operating without aggressive performance modes, without qualifying electrical deployment maps, and without yet exploring the full aerodynamic potential. And that was what caught the most attention of engineers and analysts. Because despite this ultra-conservative approach, the car demonstrated something that no chronometer can measure: structural consistency. The long runs were stable. Traction was clean. Cornering, especially in fast sequences, showed a solid platform. And that for the most trained technical eyes was a warning sign. Not because the car was fast now, but because it could be fast much later. Added to this was the human factor. Fernando Alonso got out of the car with an attitude that had not been seen for a long time. Far from the frustrated or tired body language he showed earlier in his career, what we saw was a mix of caution and motivation. Alonso himself said it bluntly: "For us, this was day one." While others arrived with weeks of adjustments, they were just discovering the car. And yet, there were no mistakes, there were no critical failures, there were no red flags. Everything worked. And in a car as radical as this one, that is already a silent victory. This first day for Alonso with the arm26 was more than a day of testing. It was a veiled declaration of intent. Without saying it openly, Aston Martin showed that its technical commitment is alive, that there is no smoke in its promises, and that the execution of a car of these characteristics with solutions from a newie school is not only viable, but potentially revolutionary. What is not seen in time is intuited in engineering. When talking about the arm26, the vast majority of the press and fans stay with the obvious: the times. But what is causing this Aston Martin car to be generating real panic among engineers and technicians is not what is seen, but what has not yet been shown. Because while everyone is looking at the times, there's a very small group of people in the paddock who are looking beyond, the solutions hidden in this car, the ideas that challenge the technical status quo of modern Formula One. The arm26 is the most radical car that Aston Martin has produced since its return to the category. But is not about an aesthetic radicality. It's not a question of flashy spoilers or pontoons. It is radical in concept, in philosophy, in the way it approaches the 2026 technical regulations. This car is an exercise in extreme interpretation with a clear conceptual signature, Adrian Newey. And if that name appears associated, everyone knows what it means. Redefinition of flows, total aerodynamic integration, and use of the regulations in your favor. At the finest point of its interpretation point, one of the best kept secrets is in the treatment of the central volume of the car. Rather than follow the more conservative trend of other teams, Aston Martin has developed a completely new integration of Honda's hybrid package, maximizing usable space around the car's center of gravity. This not only improves dynamic balance, but optimizes the performance of the aerodynamic flow from the splitter to the diffuser, enhancing ground efficiency. In short, they have managed to make the air work for them in all phases of the return. But if there's one point where the arm26 has surprised even most experienced engineers, it is in the suspension. Pushrod both front and rear, a choice that is already aggressive in itself, but that Aston Martin has taken to a higher level. The multi-link configuration that they have adopted on both trains, especially the rear, presents a geometry that has never been seen with this precision. A forward upper link combined with an unusually low rear link. Because to generate an extreme anti-squat effect, that is, to prevent the car from sinking under acceleration, maintaining a constant and stable platform that allows the aerodynamic rake to be preserved in traction. This, in practical terms, allows the car to exit curves with more stability and without loss of load. This is not a simple improvement. It is a complete reinterpretation of how a car should behave under acceleration in this new technical era. And this is where the Newey DNA appears again. Solutions that seem minimalist, but that have a huge impact on the overall behavior of the car. The cooling architecture has also been the subject of attention. Aston Martin has not only redesigned the upper air intake, but has created an internal arrangement that allows better management of the temperature of Honda's new hybrid engine. The objective: control thermal peaks without resorting to visible or invasive solutions such as openings in the bodywork. This thermal efficiency allows them to play with less conservative engine maps without compromising reliability. Another aspect that has gone unnoticed in many coverages is the use of active aerodynamic systems. Although they have not yet shown their true configuration, it is known that systems for controlled activation of aerodynamic flow on straight and curves were discreetly tested in Barcelona. It was not a conventional DRS. We are talking about micro-adjustments in the angle of the moving elements of the front and rear wing, something that, if confirmed, could place them several steps ahead of the rest when the FIA officially releases these technologies for the 2026 season. But the most interesting thing is what they did not activate. At no point in the shakedown or in the correlation tests did they use scoring modes, nor aggressive electrical maps. The car ran in a base configuration, without maximum load simulations, without taking risks to show speed. And yet, the data collected, according to internal leaks, was superior to that projected in simulations. The tunnel track correlation is finally working for Aston Martin. And that, for a team that has experienced years of frustration with promising concepts that later did not translate into performance, is monumental news. What makes AMR26 a real threat is not its present, is your immediate future. Because unlike other cars that already show almost all of their potential at this early stage, this Aston Martin is designed to evolve. Its modular architecture, its aerodynamic flexibility, and its scope for development are clear signs that this car has a much higher performance ceiling than it has shown. And Alonso knows that up to this point, everything surrounding the AMR26 has been built around projections, technical analysis, simulations, and internal data. It is a car that has been carefully profiled to promise. But in Formula One, promises are not worth points. And that's why the big question that everyone in the paddock asks, although no one asks it openly, is one: can this car deliver when the time comes to really compete? Long-run performance during shakedown was consistent, yes, but that does not guarantee real competitiveness in race conditions. On a free track, and without the pressure of other cars around, it is relatively easy to maintain a stable platform. But when you add the chaotic component of a mass start, temperature changes, unexpected degradation, or pace management in dirty air, that's where functional concepts separate from truly competitive ones. And that's the test the AMR26 hasn't passed yet. The car has proven to be solid in terms of structural reliability, but in a race, the demands are radically different. It's not enough that it doesn't break. It has to dynamically adapt to changing pace, tire behavior, and strategic decisions in real time. It has to be able to conserve the tires when necessary, but also be able to release power when a critical window opens on the track. That is the duality that makes big teams competitive: tactical flexibility without sacrificing speed. One of the most relevant unknowns is the thermal behavior of the new Honda hybrid system. Because although Aston Martin managed to manage the temperatures in controlled environment of the tests, nothing guarantees that this management will remain stable over a full stint of racing, with traffic, changes in air flow, and the overheating typical of Grand Prix races with high temperatures. And if the system goes into thermal protection, or if the battery begins to limit power delivery, the entire technical platform can collapse. The behavior of the AMR26 with dirty air on a sustained basis has not been seen either. A car can have brilliant aerodynamics in clean air, but many radical solutions lose effectiveness when faced with the turbulence of another car. So far, that scenario has not been fully simulated. And in the current era of Formula One, with DRS trains and cars that are more difficult to follow than the regulations promised, this lack can be critical. Another point to consider is pit operations. Last year, Aston Martin had brilliant moments, but also specific errors and stops, adjustments, and strategy. With a new car with unprecedented electronic and mechanical systems, any failure in strategic execution can ruin technical performance. Unlike McLaren or Ferrari, which have much more mature processes, Aston Martin continues to fine-tune its racing operation. And if the AMR26 turns out to be as sensitive as it seems to track conditions, they will need absolutely everything to work in sync: pilot, engineers, strategists, mechanics, and data system. The key is in that first block of great prizes. Circuits like Bahrain or Suzuka, with different climates and opposite demands, will test everything the team has modeled digitally. There we will see if the tunnel track correlation is as good as it seems, if the aerodynamic flows remain consistent at different load levels, and if the radical rear suspension really provides that stable platform under pressure. This is where Alonso and Aston Martin will stop talking about potential and start talking about results. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.